So my name is Alicia Lewis. I am at the moment an acting head teacher here in Southend, where I live, which was very sunny today. Yesterday we were swimming in it. Today it was lovely and sunny. And I have been an acting head teacher for about 5 minutes. I started, my first day was the first day of SATS week. I'm a primary school, so if you're a primary school background, you will know that actually, you know, that's like the upper echelon. Like, who needs stress like that on SATS week? But as part of this this evening, I'll be talking about my journey into senior leadership, and also I'm welcomed here. We've got some other wonderful people who are joining us who are going to give us parts of their story as well. Thank you for taking the time to be here this evening. Obviously, we know what happens. We're really close to half term. We're at that final flourish, and actually taking the time out this evening to be here, thinking about you and your career development is really important. And we have a session tomorrow as well, which is about progressing into headship. But today's topic of conversation is all about progressing into senior leadership. So I hope that you gain something from this session today. And also I've got something special to talk to you about towards the end. And hopefully it's something that you would like to join us at CEFL on the journey with. So just to start, obviously I want you to think about what brought you here today. And I think that's what's really important. It's not, you know, there's always things around saying, join senior leadership, do you want to progress into this? But actually, we don't always engage with those things. But what is it that brought you here today? What is it that attracted you to this 6:30 at night Tuesday webinar, you know, when you could be watching Hollyoaks or marking some books? So actually, why are you here, and why are you here right now? I'm a firm believer in actually having a right time and a right place. And you have chosen today as that right time and that right place for you. So if you wouldn't mind popping it on the chat, and Michaela, when you're on the bus, ask the person next to you. Well, they can join in as well. So actually, why is it? What brought you here today to this evening session? If you could put that in the chat, that would be really, really helpful. Michaela's love it. She's loving the emojis. I love people that like emojis in the chat. Well done, Michaela. So, well, she's going to have to tell us what brought her here today through the power of emoticons. We have to guess those for us today. But, you know, making the decision to come here to actually put yourself out there is really important. And I do want to thank you for joining and being part of this evening session, because it is the beginning of a journey. Obviously, you have chosen to be here to progress into senior leadership. So it's obviously something that you are thinking about doing. Whether it's thinking about doing now, thinking about doing in a year's time, you have obviously decided that that is something that you want to do with your career. And that is something that is really, you should be really proud that actually you're making that step forward, because we know that education is not an easy job. We know that it's an ever-changing feat. And actually we know that the higher up you go, sometimes the lonelier it can become. And the challenges are really difficult. So it's not always an easy thing to just put yourself forward into, but actually recognizing why you are doing this is really, really key. So I don't know if everyone's, this is the bit where everyone's like typing, and then there's like a weird silence. But if you do want to take yourself off mute and say why you are here, if that's easier than typing, then you are more than welcome to do that. I don't know if Shauna, you're in a position where you could say why you're here. If you want to save it for the chat, you could do that as well, or anyone else that we have got here today actually saying why is you are here and what you are hoping to gain from this. And actually we have got some leaders who are going to be sharing their stories with us this afternoon. That's evening, isn't it? So Michaela has put in, she wants to find out how to progress professionally to be able to inspire others to achieve their full potential. And that's really important, because that's one of the reasons why we came into education, to inspire our children, to achieve their full potential, to be the best that they can be. And actually recognizing that place as a leader is a whole different impact level. It's a whole different zone of influence, because you're influencing the children, but you're also influencing the leaders, the teachers, everyone else in the school. That's it. Others are students and colleagues. And that's really key, isn't it? There are those two avenues that actually you can inspire going forth as a leader. Thank you. So we have got a reality that we have to face. And here at the Church of England's Foundation for Educational Leadership, we are really lucky that actually we are in a position where we have been funded a really substantial amount of money to work on and to develop racial justice within our church schools. Now, obviously, today, this webinar and the one that we're going to hold tomorrow night is not specifically for teachers and leaders in church schools. This is for everyone, because we actually believe in the eyes of the Vision for Education is all about having life in all its fullness, and we believe that life in all its fullness is everybody. So please do not feel like you need to be in a church school to be part of this evening, and I'm very welcome to you if you are here not part of the church school community. But we have a real reality, and that reality is that we need to break the cycle that is currently in existence within this country, that actually there is not racial equity in educational leadership. If you look at the stats, you can Google the DFE workforce statistics, the figures are staggering, how there is such a huge dominance in senior leadership and going forth into headship of those who are of a white British background. Now, we know in reality, our society, our everyday society, is not made up of that. We know there is a wealth of culture, of heritage that actually we love and we value and we should be really proud of. And we recognise that that should be reflected in our leadership within schools. We recognise that actually there are some areas of this country where the demographic is very monocultured. And also it's about thinking how we can build those spaces and those communities so that they are safe communities and environments for those of a global majority background, so that actually they feel confident in applying for senior leadership positions in schools that actually might have a different demographic completely to their own heritage. So we need to break the cycle, and as part of that, as I've said, the Church of England has had a significant fund to the Education Office to develop this work, and some of the colleagues who are doing that work are here today on their webinar, and we'll be speaking to you about their journeys into leadership as well. For those of you who have just arrived, welcome. Thank you for taking the time out today to think about you. So you are here for this evening to actually discuss you. We're not here to discuss the children particularly. This is about each of you making your own journeys into senior leadership and thinking about why you are making that journey. And Michaela has already put in the chat what has brought her here today. So actually, if you've just arrived, if you could put in the chat as well, why are you here today? Because as I said to those who joined us earlier, everything happens for a reason. Something has drawn you to being on this webinar on a Tuesday evening at getting to near 7 o'clock. I assume that most of you in your local authorities, in your schools, wherever you are, there probably are other things out there for journeying into senior leadership. But actually, why is it that you have come here today? And Shauna has put, it's within my attention to progress into leadership. She's currently doing her Masters in Leadership and Education, and she'd like to hear stories and learn from others as they overcame the barriers. And that is something that actually we're going to start talking about today. So what do you think has actually held you back so far from progressing into senior leadership? But also, what do you think would help you on your journey going forward? So just hold those two questions in your mind for the moment. And actually that first question in particular is something you have to be really open and honest about. What do you think has held you back? Now, I'll be really honest, and I think everyone on this call today probably will be as well. When I became an assistant head, I was 29. And all I heard for the first probably year of being an assistant head was the phrase, you're going to be a young head. You're going to be a young head. You're going to be a young head. And actually for me, for some people that actually hearing that goes, yeah, I want to be a young head. That's really good. All I heard in that, and that's probably actually what they were saying, you'd be really good at that. You should be a young head. All I kept hearing was young head. And when people talk about young heads like that, they talk about inexperience. They talk about, running before they can walk. They talk about having the bravado, but actually they don't know what they're talking about. All I heard in that was a negative. And that held me back because for such a long time, I had imposter syndrome. And it wasn't until I read a book that actually called it out in me that I thought, yeah, do you know what? I am absolutely fabulous, as probably everyone is here today. But I did have a real deep imposter syndrome. Actually, I can't really be as good as everyone is thinking that I am. And if I take this job, I'm going to be absolutely awful at it. So that is something that held me back. And actually acknowledging that helped me. And as I said, I moved from assistant head to deputy. And now for the past 10 minutes of my life, I've been the acting head teacher. But recognizing what holds you back is something that is important. Thank you to those who have added into the chat. So we've got someone who said, I've been teaching for 22 years. I worked as a consultant and now I'm a lead. Nicola has said, I'm working as a SENCO in a large secondary school, which is very diverse. I've been blocked in many instances from attending SLT meetings and even meetings with governors as part of my role. I'm not being supported with any professional development to move into leadership and carry out the leadership elements of my role. And I'm really sorry, actually, Nicola, that is something that you are experiencing. And hopefully, within the session today, you can find yourself in a space that actually you can talk and share that with and actually hear about how you can move forward. I'm now a subject lead. When I was asked to go on a subject leadership course, I was told not now. And that is the reality, isn't it? If it's not now, when? How quickly did I move from assistant to deputy head, Alicia? No, well, that's an interesting question. So I spent my first 7 years of my career in a Catholic school. I was there for 6 years and got itchy feet. I loved that place with absolute bones of my body. I grew up there, I got engaged there, I got married there, had my first 2 children there. That was my family, but I got itchy feet. I said to my head teacher, I've got itchy feet, I'm going to have to move. And there's nothing within this school to help me move. There was no structure for progression at that time. So my head teacher panicked because I was the year 6 teacher and led about 5 subjects. The governors gave me £1,000 to stay for the year. And when you're young, £1,000 is good, especially when you've just got 2 tiny children. I'll have £1,000. I stayed another year, and the itchy feet was worse. I moved to assistant head of a community school where I was for 2 years. And I took a sidestep as assistant head to the school that I am in now, because it's a school that I wanted to work in and to be part of. It's the Church of England school. And then I was assistant head for 4 years. When I said to my head teacher one day, do you know what? I do loads of stuff. In the school, I lead curriculum, I lead assessment, I lead English. I basically lead all the teaching and learning. I do the CPD within the school. I'm also the local authority moderation manager, and I'm a specialist leader in education. I'm doing all of these things, and I know I am doing way more than any other assistant head in this town. Make me a deputy. So they went to the governors and he said, yep, actually, do you know what? She is. So they made me a deputy because I stood up for myself and said, I am doing that job and I deserve it. And I had a very honest conversation with my head teacher, which basically said, you've paid me this much. So if I go to another school to become a deputy, I'm getting paid more as an assistant head than they're going to want to pay a deputy. If I take the jump from assistant head to head, which actually can be done and I could do, I'm going to go up against other people who've got the title deputy head. And I'm very aware that on a piece of paper, having the words deputy head can make other people go, well, that person's going to be better than that person. So actually, pulled him out on it, changed my job title. And then as of May, I've become acting head teacher of my school. I took on all these other roles to power myself through because I thought I want to be ready. So I did my NPQH. I was seconded for a year to CEFL, which is how I'm here today. And I wrote the NPQ programs that some people are doing, thousands of people are doing. It's quite interesting to think they're doing something that myself and a few others wrote. But actually what I recognise is I had to take ownership of my own professional development to put myself in a place that made me the best that I could be for when I take on the roles. And in reality, my job is I'm still acting. The person spec is being written right now, the advert's being written right now. And in reality, I might not get the job. But I tell you what, anyone else wants to take me on right now, I am ready for them because I absolutely love the bones of that school. And I know that I'm really good at my job, even though I feel like I'm making it up every 5 minutes. But what held me back was the imposter syndrome. and I recognised what held me back. But I recognised how actually I had to squash that demon telling me that I couldn't do it and embrace my worth for what I knew I could do. But that's not the only part of the story. So what I'm going to get you to do now is just put you in some breakout rooms to spend a moment actually thinking about what is it that's held you back. And it's really lovely to see you interacting with the chat so far, actually sharing those stories, thinking about what it is that is bringing you here, what is holding you back. So you should have I've done this. Well, here we go. I'm going to press the button and you will go into a room, and for the next 5-10 minutes just actually talk about you, why you are here, what you want for your own career aspirations and development, and actually what do you think is going to really help you on that way. So you should be seeing an invitation come up on your screen to join the room.
I'll join Laureen to hear.
Oh yeah, she's in room
she'll be on her own.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, look, I'm having a look here. That's it. Well done. So welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed that time just to talk. You know, that's what's really important about this time, actually. It's having a space that you feel safe in, that you actually feel that you can be really open and honest in. And I hope that you've taken that opportunity to really have that time with the others in your room. So if anyone would like to say, obviously you don't feel like you have to, and if you want to just put it in the chat, but actually if there is anything that you would like to articulate as to actually what you think has been the thing that has held you back, but also what do you think would actually really help you? I think that's the thing we always say to the children, you know, when we're building that resilience and when we're thinking about our journey, it's important to recognize what it is that actually is holding us back. But actually we can't sit in that space for too long, because what we do need to recognize is actually what will help us to move forward. So what do you think maybe has been something that could help you along the way, or something that you can recognize within your journey so far that's been important? And I know for me personally, I've been able to do so much because I worked for people who recognized that actually I was really good, and they allowed me to have the opportunity to progress into different areas. So actually being able to say, you know, I want to do my NPQH. Can I do it? And actually having a person on the other side of the table that says, yes, that's been something that's really good for you. That's really important. Having someone that actually motivates you whilst you're on the journey is really key. And having someone that actually believes in you, I think, is a really important part, because sometimes we don't believe in ourselves enough. So having someone else who can be the cheerleader, someone else who can be the encourager, someone else who recognizing you and your gifts and your talents is something that actually is a really key part on your journey to leadership. I know it has been something that's been really important in mine. And if you do want to share something, obviously feel free to click into the chat what something is that could be in your head right now. But for the next few minutes, I'm going to pass over to somebody else, another member of the team. So Bola Alicia is here, and she's a member of the CEFL team, thinking about racial justice, but developing that within our primary school settings. And she's going to share part of her journey into senior leadership with you all now. Bola Alicia.
Thank you, Alicia. It was really great to actually just hear stories as well. And yeah, it's interesting, the commonality as well. So I'm going to go back before I go forward. So I think that our stories are often the stuff of what makes us who we are. I've been in education for 10 years, 8 of which were in the classroom. And I still remember my excitement and nerves as I entered my first placement school in London during my teaching degree. I mean, it was an incredible school. And I remember being given free rein by my mentor to experiment with my teaching, to share all my creative ideas, as I'm very excitable, and to be myself. Was I myself? Well, I wasn't, because past experiences had taught me to hold back a little, that showing my authentic self could make me vulnerable. Now, my second teaching placement was quite a different experience. And despite those very high grades from the previous year, the deputy head teacher told me that because I'd come to a white school, I should not expect to achieve the same grades, but it was really nice to have me there for the one Black child they had in the school. Now, the events that followed this were very traumatic, as many untruths were told about my practice and my ability to be a successful practitioner. Things like I was disorganized, I had no assessment systems, and had very little planning. Now, amongst my friends and colleagues, my nickname is Monica from Friends because of my organization. So thankfully, the program lead knew that couldn't possibly be true. But I remember leaving that school with two sickening thoughts. If they could treat me like that, what was life like for the one Black child in the school? And it also made me reevaluate what I'd been taught as a child by my parents. So my mum is Brazilian and my dad is Nigerian, so I have a mixed heritage background. And they taught me that if I worked hard, I tried my best and listened to those around me with experience and wisdom, then I would be successful. But at that moment, I realized that if someone in a position of power had an issue with the color of my skin or my race, I could be left feeling completely powerless. I did go on to qualify with the first class honours, and subsequently I taught in primary schools, both nationally and internationally, in a range of diverse to non-diverse schools. However, my experience in the UK schools I worked in was that I was the only person of colour. So now you have a little background. I'll share a bit of my journey from middle to senior leadership. So my middle leadership role was as head of year 3 in a large primary school in Brighton. And across my 3 years in the school, I was head of English, science and history. Now, there were difficult times in the school, but there were also many positive highlights. And those are the things that I would hold on to when things got tough. And one thing that I learned was the importance of building a tribe around you. And that's got to be a tribe that you can trust. There will be difficult times and tricky situations where we need to speak to others who understand and can empathize. And psychological safety is essential in order for us to flourish. Now, this doesn't have to be someone in your school. I'm part of 2 groups with other educators of colour who have been an incredible source of support for me during my senior leadership journey. I'd also say that part of my journey to senior leadership included self-doubt, like Alicia mentioned just a few minutes ago. And despite that self-doubt, my head teacher at that time, when I was head of year 3, recognised my potential, and he signed me up as a school improvement champion for a cluster of 6 schools in Brighton. Now, the impact of my work on those schools created a fire in my belly. And that just made me want to do even more, especially within EDI. And sometimes when we need others to see the potential in us, that is so important because we can't always see it ourselves. So that then led me to apply for a deputy headship in a rural, all-white school in East Sussex. Why, you might be thinking, like, why would I do that? Well, for me, part of the healing from the trauma that I experienced during my degree made it even more crucial for me to place myself in a space where I was essentially told that I didn't belong. And that's because it is within those environments that diverse representation is even more important, especially in leadership positions. I did experience a few instances of racism, but that highlighted the importance of recording, reporting and reconciliation. And despite me contributing to the race equality guidance for East Sussex schools, I was stunned to find that there were no official reporting processes, and it was mostly left up to individual schools. That was my sign then to create further positive change as part of the training that I would lead for, ended up being over 150 head teachers and governors within the local authority. I would say that through my work in my previous school, I have to say that the pupils and staff that I had the pleasure of working with have become some of the most anti-racist ambassadors I could ever wish for. So even within those white spaces, we can have a huge impact. I think it's important to remember that you are deserving of the leadership position you seek. It's not how you will fit into an organisation, it's about what you bring to the school to add to it, to positively disrupt it, to change it for the better, because every school can be improved. I was once told that I should just be happy and satisfied with being a teacher. You know, that was fine for me. But now I sit here as one of the national education leads for racial justice for the Church of England. And I do that alongside my wonderful colleague, Elizabeth, who you might be able to see on the screen. Please remember that you belong wherever you choose to go and be a leader. And I think that was one of my barriers, is feeling that I didn't belong in some of the spaces. So I really had to take such courage to try and get myself into those spaces. Now, for the primary teachers or leaders here, because I'm primary based, I think sometimes there is the assumption that we might be less skilled than our secondary colleagues. However, when I invited some of the secondary schools I worked with to visit and see what life is like in primary schools as a leader, it was a bit of an eye-opener. I would also say that the size of the school you choose doesn't mean you have fewer responsibilities. In fact, the smaller the school, often the more responsibilities. So in my previous role as a deputy head teacher, I was also the SENCO, English, Maths, History and Geography lead, as well as teaching 2 days a week. But I managed to share RE with another member of staff. I at least did that. But in hindsight, I wish I'd had a senior leader from a UKME or global majority background who could have guided me on a more personal level. Mentorship would have been amazing. For example, someone who would check in with me and stop me if I was doing far too much for little recognition, or who would give me a boost if I felt discouraged. Sadly, my story isn't uncommon. However, sometimes I do come across colleagues from a UKME or global majority background who say that they haven't had negative experiences. But I often reflect on the fact that the adverse experiences I encountered have been things that have caused me to take action to create long-lasting change for others, and have also given me the ability to truly empathise and understand those who have had similar experiences. Now, sometimes we will feel tired. Please remember that that's okay. Resilience doesn't mean we push ourselves to the point where we burn out or become emotionally depleted. It's okay to take a pause, take a breath, and remind ourselves that the reason we do what we do is because of the pupils. They are at the heart of everything we do. As teachers, we are often our own worst critics, but I've learned to collect key moments and sort of file them away. Key moments such as one that I'll leave you with. So I remember a child who I had the pleasure of teaching who suffered trauma as part of a civil war in his country of origin. Now, he joined my class as an elective mute with paralysis on the right side of his body. And I remember the day that he spoke to me because he asked me the most incredible question as the class were going out to play. And he asked and said, "Miss Irinda, if you speak 2 languages equally, which language do you dream in?" So I'll leave you with that thought, and I really hope that we can be part of your journey towards senior leadership.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I think there are lots of people here. I know for one, I've gone, yep, I agree with that. I've had that moment. And actually, it's really important to take that time to share that and to hear it. So thank you very much, because I think there's a lot that everybody can take from that, even if it is just the time to pause and admit that you can't always be at the top of the game. And I know that, you know, one of the biggest things is that for those of a UKME background, everyone feels like they have to work twice as hard to get half as far. And actually, sometimes you've got to take that time and take that pause, because at some point there will be enough. Your body will take too much, your mind will take too much, and you need to recognize that actually your own self-worth means you need to take that time to pause as well. Thank you. Mohammed, you've joined us. You just put your hand up. I don't know if there's something you would like to pop in the chat and say, or if you want to take yourself off mute, you are welcome here.
Thank you very much. Yes, I just wanted to first of all say a huge thank you for organizing this. I did pick it up quite late, so I missed the first half, but certainly very inspirational there listening to Bola speaking. Sorry, I can't seem to get my camera on, so you'd have to just hear me. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
We can hear you absolutely
awesome.
Fine, thank you.
I just wanted to put the question out there, really. I've been in the profession nearly 20 years now, and very early on in my career, I was tipped for leadership. And at the time, I politely declined because I just wanted to get my head around the challenges of teaching before taking on more responsibility. And then I did my PQML about 6-7 years ago. Around the time the barriers report was prepared by the National Union of Teachers alongside the Runnymede Trust. And I think that was around 2016. So some 6 years later, what lessons have been learned? Because listening to what Bola is saying, it sounds like the challenges I was experiencing in my early career, into my mid-career, and now, you know, into the early 2020s, those challenges still pretty much exist. So what have we learned from the barriers report, and what, if anything, has been successful since?
Well, I think that leads seamlessly on to the next part of my presentation, Mohammed. It's almost like you knew what was coming next, because actually, you know, what we have learned from the barriers report and the other things that have come out since is actually an awareness of the reality of the challenges that those from a UKME background face within progressing into leadership. And we know there are all various factors, you know, like for certain people, when they come here from the place they were born, actually their qualifications aren't always recognised within this country. So we've got people who are really, you know, really well, highly qualified, starting again at the bottom. Things like that aren't right, you know. So there are lots of things that have been picked out and pulled upon and actually acknowledged now. They're not widely acknowledged, but there is more out there now than there was, as you say, when you started teaching 20 years ago. The research is small, but it's a lot more than there was. And so what you are here for, obviously, is about progressing into senior leadership. But actually, we have got something to give back to you to help you alongside your journey. They may have been things that you discussed as a group into what you might need or what you identify. And so this last part now is really focusing us onto something that we are offering you. So welcome to the Leaders Like Us programme. So the Church of England Foundation for Educational Leadership, as I said at the beginning, for those of you who weren't here, have had a significant fund of money, and it is very significant, actually develop racial justice work within education. Now, I do want to make this really clear from the beginning. This programme, this opportunity is for anybody who wants to move into senior leadership in a school. And that does not have to be a Church of England school. I know that quite often when you've got the label Church of England Education Office on things, people think, oh, I'm not in a church school, not in a C of E school, I can't engage with this. You can engage with this no matter what school you are in. So the Leaders Like Us programme is brand new. This is part of the launch of the programme, and it is an 18-month learning journey supporting you as a leader to develop your knowledge and skills in order to prepare you for headship within the next 2 to 5 years. Now, you might be thinking, oh, I've been here and heard this before. Is this an NPQH in a disguise? No. But however, there is part of this within it. So there are 4 elements that have been identified as really beneficial to leaders of a global majority background in moving forward. We have to recognise actually the barriers that we faced and that we continue to face are very specialist in their areas. And so we need to take that time to recognise that, to hold that, and to move it forward, acknowledging those things that can really support people, leaders like all of us on this chat here moving forward. So the 4 things you can see down the side here: training, shadowing, mentoring, and networking. So what we are offering to all of you, or let me go back, I seem to go up there. Let's go back to this one. You are obviously going to have some bespoke training, which is offered through CEFL, and you can choose to do the NPQH or the NPQSL, depending on where you are, and you can do that through CEFL. We have we provide those programs, I know, because I spent last year writing them, part of the fun part of my job. So you can take your NPQSL or NPQH, sorry, through CEFL, or you can actually join part of the Aspiring Heads program. That is something that you might want to look into. You can Google Aspiring Heads to see how that program works. So as part of our recognition that actually having those training qualifications does make a big difference. It is, when you look at job adverts now, it always comes up in the desirable section, NPQ. And actually, you will have an up-to-date NPQ. The NPQs all changed last year. So actually taking part in the Leaders Like Us program will enable you to take part in the current NPQs. And that's really important, that you will be getting the up-to-date NPQ courses. And you'll be getting that because they are delivered free of charge to the DfE as well at the moment. So you can have that bespoke training. There's also some work with the Institute of Educational and Social Equity run by Professor Paul Miller. And as I've said, there is the Aspiring Heads program as well. And thank you for popping that in the chat if you want to have a look. So the professional learning team within CEFL will help you to choose which of those routes will actually help you within your career progression. Because actually, the more things you can tick in that desirable section, the better. So shadowing, we recognise, is really key. Because maybe within your own school, the opportunities you've had are very limited. Maybe you aren't a school. My school is not in a MAT. Although we have links with other schools because of the work I have done, actually shadowing and having those opportunities within other schools is something that can be really key. It's something that has been researched and evidenced as actually being really key to UKME leaders progressing into leadership. So linking you with a similar school in a contrasting location to actually see what being a senior leader, being a head teacher is like. That part, if you think about the old NPQH, if you know the old system, there was a project that was run in a different school. That I found personally really important as part of my NPQH process. That is not within the new NPQs. But that shadowing, we recognise, is really key into leaders having that progression. So we're putting that as something available to you as well. And we are currently working with generating that bank of people who want to have their schools and their teachers and their head teachers involved in this process. So as part of that, you will have a mentor. And as it says here, your mentor head teacher will support you as you seek to progress in your career, helping you prepare for all those really important things like job applications, interview experience, and supporting your own personal development as a leader. So the mentors will all be trained by experienced UKME school leaders within MATs and dioceses that are already engaged with our diversity, equity and inclusion work that we run through the foundation. And then the last rung of it is networking, actually forming a group with other leaders on the programme to work together, actually forming an affinity group in a space like we've got today. I have previously run through my roles a diversity and leadership programme. I've had 14 leaders go through it. They did all the things that are on here, not to the national scale that I have got here with CEFL, but we did it at a local level. And out of those 14 teachers, I've got 3 of them that are now assistant heads. I've got a deputy head. I've got a senior leader. I've got a phase leader. I've got 2 doing the masters and another 2 doing NPQs. You know, this works. These 4 things work. And it is a real proud privilege to be able to bring this to you on a national level. So please, what I'm going to ask you to do now is to sign yourself up. Actually think about what you're going to gain out of this. Now, remarkably, the one thing everyone says, how much does it cost? It's free. Because we have got that significant amount of money, what we want to do and what we're doing here at CEFL is actually putting the words into action. As you said, Mohammed, there have been years of everyone saying what has to happen or what the barriers are. What are we doing? The Church of England is doing. So we have got the money. The course is going to be free of charge to anyone here, apart from travelling and the cost of your time out of school. But in all honesty, your head teachers should be seeing your gifts and your talents, and their job is to ensure that you have the career progression and the professional development that you need to be the best that you can be. If you find yourself in a position, actually, you feel like your head teachers might not be supportive, or actually your head teachers need a bit of a better and clearer idea of what this program is and actually how and why it will benefit you, we can help you with that. So the team, as has just been in the chat, if you want someone to talk to, if you want somebody to have a discussion with you and your head teacher, we can help to facilitate that, because we recognise that actually that can be a barrier. But a lot of people I have met in my career, my lived experience is so far from theirs. And so sometimes people just need to actually have that time to be aware of what's going on and recognise that their reality is not the reality for other people. But actually, as head teachers, they have got the responsibility to give you the professional development that you need. So we can help you with those conversations if you need to. Now, what is great is already people are signing up expressions of interest. All these are good things. So we have got 10 of you here on this chat. If we had all 10 of you take part in the programme, how amazing would that be? That there will be, within the next 18 months, 10 more leaders of a UKME background like us. How fantastic would that be? So you are all invited. You're invited to do two things. You're invited to the launch event. This is like the pre-launch, because, you know, right now it's nice. We're all on Zoom and not as glamorous as we could be. So you are invited to our launch event, which is on the 26th of January. It is in London, and you can, details will be coming out about that. But guess what? It's going to be really swanky and great. And we have bowl food. So you want to be there for that. So that will be in London. You are then invited the next day to the Church of England Foundation's national conference following that. So something as well to get you on the, oh, here we go, for Emily's put in there, on the 36th floor in the city. It's like we're teasing you, but you want to be there. And if you're able to be in London and for a little bit longer, please stay the next day to be part of the Foundation for Educational Leadership's conference. It's really a brilliant conference, absolutely brilliant. 2 years ago, I went, I sat there the day after Ofsted and I cried because I was just so inspired and motivated, possibly because I survived Ofsted. You always want to cry after that. But thinking about what you're doing for you. You are here tonight for you. And I really want to say, well done for taking this time on a Tuesday night to be here for you. So at the bottom is the webpage. Please have a look. There are more details about the programme. You can share that with your head teachers, share it with just someone else, but that person who is your encourager, that person who is your champion. Please share it with them. And the last thing, I'm going to take up 2 more minutes of your time just to share one last thing with you. I've told a bit of my story. Bola Alicia has shared some of hers, and I'm going to end today with our wonderful Shabazz, who is an assistant head in London.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shabazz Saeed, and I am an assistant head teacher at an all-through school in Islington, North London. I've been given the opportunity and an honour actually to share my leadership journey with you all today. Believe it or not, this is probably my 10th time trying to record this because I end up rambling quite a lot. So I'm going to try to keep this as short and sweet as possible. I wanted to start off by actually talking about my main sort of driver into getting into education, because I think that's important. I studied forensic science at university, and when I left university there were sort of no jobs available for me to go into the forensic science field, just because of the politics around how forensic science was managed by the government at that particular time. So I found myself as a lab technician in a secondary school in northwest London at that particular time. Now through that I had the opportunity to demonstrate sort of practicals that teachers would be doing, but demonstrating those to pupils at that particular time. And it was a teacher there that actually said to me, Shabazz, have you ever thought about teaching? Because you seem to be do you have a good relationship with these people? So have you ever thought about going into teaching? Prior to that point, I had never had a thought about going into teaching, but actually that was almost like the catalyst that sparked my entrance into the profession. Another thing that really helped was I couldn't afford to do a PGC at that particular time, so actually the teaching and learning lead at that particular school suggested I do a what we call a graduate teachers program, which was in essence an on-the-job training program that gives you QTS at the end of it. So I went for that. Now the reason why I mentioned that is because actually through that I sort of found something that I was really good at, and that was relating to pupils and sort of teaching a subject that they may not necessarily enjoy, which was science. And actually, me understanding and knowing that I'm quite good at that, that was really where it started. I wanted to make sure that I was the best at what I did, and that all of my pupils that I taught, they got the best from me that they could. And actually, I think that's important because to be a leader in education, the first point is you have to lead by example, and if you're unable to teach effectively or relate to pupils effectively, then actually being a leader probably isn't that step just yet. You need to hone your craft. You need to make sure that you're good at what you do. So I think it was important that I shared that story. The other reason why is actually it was once I got QTS from that, I actually joined the current school that I'm at now as an NQT. And when I joined over here, one of the key things, again, like I said, I wanted to do was I just wanted to be great at teaching. And to be honest, I didn't really care who saw me in terms of like the different members of staff in school. Actually, I just wanted to be good at what I did, and I wanted to make sure that the pupils enjoyed the learning that was going on in lesson. But what worked well there was actually I was then noticed by leadership. I was then seen by senior leadership to, as someone who's great at what they do, and that sort of put my name a bit on the radar of the leadership team at my particular school. And from that, I was able to share best practice. I was able to share my thoughts on behavior management and so on and so forth. And as a teacher, I was able to be involved in a few different aspects of teaching and learning. My first sort of taste of leadership was after my NQT year. There was a position that came up, which was the head of chemistry position. And imagine I'm still fresh in teaching. I've only done 2 years. I've done my training year, I've done my NQT year, and now there's an opportunity to become head of chemistry at my particular school. And something in my head was telling me that you're just not quite ready for it. But my wife, my wife, she told me, you know what, there's an opportunity. What have you got to lose? Just go for it. There's an opportunity there. You just go for it. And actually, that's really how my leadership journey went. An opportunity came up, and I just went for it. No matter how I felt about it at that particular time, I just went for it, and that's where it started. That's where my leadership journey started. And that wasn't a major leadership position. I had a bit more responsibility. I was responsible for the outcomes of chemistry. It was more curriculum based. It wasn't like on the leadership scale at that particular time. But it was my sort of role into leadership, and I felt quite confident with that because I was good at what I was doing, which was teaching, and I was able to share that with my staff, and I was able to make sure that the outcomes were good based on that. I think the biggest step that came for me was when a position came up on the leadership scale. I forgot what that position was at that particular time, but it was something around gifted and talented, but also something about pupil premium strategy. It was like a merger of sort of stretching our top and making sure our disadvantaged pupils get the best opportunities as well. And I remember going for that role, knowing that I was up against 2 other very experienced leaders already on the leadership scale. And me, I'm sort of in my sort of 3rd year of teaching. I've just become head of chemistry. I was thinking, they must be looking at me like thinking, well, he just wants to climb, but he's not good at what he does. And that was my worry. But again, the opportunity came up, and I just went for it. And I'm glad I went for it because actually I was successful in that. To the surprise of everyone, to the surprise of myself, to the surprise of pretty much the whole school, I was given that opportunity onto the leadership scale to lead a particular intervention. Now, as part of that process, I sort of made excuses for myself as to why I got it. Maybe maybe I was just the right person at the right time, or maybe that person was, well, I mean, that person has other issues around them, which meant that they weren't suitable for the role, or maybe that I just, well, basically what it felt like to me was when I got that role, I felt like I pulled the wool over their eyes. I have to be honest. I felt like I pulled the wool over their eyes, and I thought, okay, somehow I've managed to trick them into giving me this position. That's what was in my head. And I think that's important because actually that goes down to quite a number of years, and it's only probably last year where I've really felt in place in senior leadership. But this idea it's imposter syndrome. It's this idea of thinking, okay, well, maybe you're not actually the right person to be there. Maybe like you kind of feel like you've infiltrated this level when actually you shouldn't really be there. And that carried through to me throughout my whole leadership journey. Actually, I was then given the opportunity to actually be part of SLT. So prior to that point, I was on like a middle leaders level. I did that for 2 years, and then I was given the opportunity to join the SLT team as part of the head of sixth form. The reason for that is because the old head of sixth form just suddenly left, and they needed someone in there, and they sort of approached me to say, would I be interested in this? Now again, I have to be honest, I was not ready for it. I was thinking to myself, I'm not ready for this. This is a massive jump, not in terms of just like pay scale, or like it was a massive jump from where I was, but also responsibility level. Like I would be responsible for the whole of sixth form. But again, I spoke to my wife about it, and she said, Shabazz, it's an opportunity. You need to go for it. If you're not the right person for it, then fine. But at least you went for it. So I did go for it, and I managed to get the job. And can I tell you, that was probably the hardest 2 years of my life, because I wasn't ready for it, and actually it was a massive jump for me. But also, it was there was two factors that added to the struggle that I had that particular year. I mean, number one, not only is the head of sixth form role just quite a substantial role, you're almost leading a school within a school. Basically, you're responsible for pastoral, you're responsible for curriculum, you're responsible for attainment. You need to hold your curriculum leaders to account, your pastoral leaders to account. You have to deal with safeguarding, the DSL, so on and so forth. So you're basically dealing with a whole school. But I think the biggest reason why I found that so difficult is because I kept on telling myself, I've managed to trick them in giving me this position, and I'm just not ready, and I just don't have the skills, and I was just doubting myself. I was constantly doubting myself. I'm not ready for this. Why have they given me this? This is too much. I just don't know what I'm doing. Until one day I actually finally spoke to the head, and I said, look, I don't think this is the right thing for me. I don't think I'm ready for this. And she sat me down. She had a good chat with me, and she one thing that really stuck with me with what she said was, Shabazz, if we didn't think you were right for the role, we wouldn't have given it to you. You have managed to show us throughout your whole time over here how you've been able to adapt to situations, how you've been able to keep a cool, calm, collected hat on your head, and really, help drive standards forward. And that's the reason why I gave you the job. And I think it was that conversation there that actually changed it for me a bit, because up until that point, I was still telling myself the only reason they gave me that job was because there was no one else available. They needed someone to quickly step in. But it was that conversation. And now, really, it's only, like I said, 2 years ago. So I did head of sixth form for 2 years. I've been a pastoral lead, and then I've been teaching and learning since then. And it's only recently that I've really felt that my input is valued from a leadership point of view. And I could see changes within myself, and it's taken a long time because that imposter syndrome has always stuck with me, but changes within myself that has meant that actually I do believe in what I do. There is a reason why I'm here. I have shown what I'm capable of doing. And you know, as I give advice to the people that I line manage, I could see how they appreciate the advice that I'm giving them, that they respect my thoughts and sort of my ideas around a particular issue that they might face. And I think it's important that that wouldn't have happened unless I had that conversation with their teacher. So like I said, this is probably like the seventh time I'm recorded this. So I think it's a good time to probably end it now. And it ends with me sort of saying two things, maybe even three things. Three things that I would say that are important in trying to get into senior leadership. Okay. The first thing that helped me was I was in a school that valued what I did in terms of, and that starts from when I first joined here as an NQT. They showed how much they valued the teaching that I was doing, and then that then moved on to me going into leadership, and then they valued who I was and what I was doing and all the hours that I was trying to put in to make sure that I was great at what I did. And if you're not in a school that values the hard work that you put in, then maybe that's not the right school for you. Secondly, there's no way that I would be at the stage where I am unless I had the support of the people around me. And that even goes down to like the people that I teach with on teacher level, even down to senior leaders and so on. It's through their encouragement and their sort of ideas of having belief in me that's what's allowed me to be where I am. The third thing is, don't be your own worst enemy. One of the biggest things, like I said, that I battled with becoming SLT was thinking I'm not the right person here. Doubting myself. The only reason I'm here is because I managed to trick them to get around this SLT table. I've managed to convince them that I'm actually better than I actually am. Because actually, the reality is, if you're not the right person for the job, you won't get the job. The reason you've been given a job is because actually you've been able to prove your worth and you've been able to prove your ability to do the job. So I think have belief in that. It's important. Now, you know, I'm part of an SLT team, not a very diverse SLT team, but has that ever been an issue for me in terms of how I feel about myself? It hasn't been, because actually, as an SLT team, I've been quite fortunate to be part of a team where we help each other to get the best and to really drive forward what our vision is for this particular school. So I think, you know, you want to be in a place where who you are and the person you are and the color of your skin, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter, because actually you're all on this common goal to really get to your final destination as a school, and I think you want to be part of a school like that. So I think I hope that's been useful. I'll probably end it there now. But I'm more than happy to answer any questions, or feel free to drop me an email or message me on LinkedIn if you really want to. But, you know, I really want to encourage as many of you to go towards leadership and have belief in yourself that you're able to do so effectively. So thank you for taking the time to listen.
Be part of this program, because it will really help to support you working with other leaders just like us, who face the same challenges, who understand, but who also have the passion, the energy, the determination to break the cycle of inequity in education, which is what we are all here. I do want to say thank you for joining us today. Thank you for taking the time out of your evening to spend the time with us. It has been lovely to get to know some of you, to hear your journeys. Thank you, Bola Alicia, for sharing yours. Thank you, Mohammed, for sharing your thoughts with us today as well. It's been a pleasure to get to know you, and I really hope that you sign up, whether you sign up officially or whether you just dip your toe in for the moment, but actually do this for you, because our children in our schools deserve more leaders like us, because we are fabulous. So I hope you are pressing that button now and having a good old look, and I hope you feel motivated to take that jump into doing something that I am sure each and every one of you could do with your eyes absolutely closed. So enjoy the rest of your evening. Please check out the website, and hopefully I will look forward to seeing all of you, all 10 of you. I've written your names down. I'm very good with the name, at the launch event in January on the 26th. Those details are on the website as well. So enjoy the rest of your evening, enjoy the rest of your week and your half term, because you'll definitely deserve it when it comes around in a few weeks. And we will see you soon.